Okay, let's see if this is running. Yep. All right, so in today's video, we are going to look at how to run faster. Now, I did one of these before, and it was to do with jumping higher. So again, two common questions I really get are either towards the jump or sprinting, especially when it comes to field athletes. So we're going to break it down step by step. It has a lot in common with the jumping video, but I'm just going to change it to suit this kind of practical question of sprinting, because a lot of people are always kind of asking what's the best exercise to do when sprinting, in the gym, how can I get better at sprinting? And then people kind of put aside the specificity of sprinting, and then those who are sprinting aren't doing it right, in the sense of if they want to get faster, they're not giving themselves enough recovery time to get faster, and they're kind of focusing on quantity over quality of work when it comes to sprinting. So I'll get started. How to run faster. Here's a step by step. So we're going to go through different topics: understanding the goal, supporting the goal, some considerations, and then practical application as always. So when we're going into this, the number one principle is specificity. So a common question: what is the best exercise for me if I want to sprint faster? My usual response is, have you tried sprinting? And it seems blatantly obvious, but that is the whole point of it. It should be that obvious, yet people kind of skip over it. If you wanted to run a marathon or compete in a powerlifting competition, how would you train? And again, it seems pretty obvious. I mean, you're not going to hop on a rower or go and do 5 gym sessions a week of upper, lower, full body workouts to get ready for a marathon. Just like if you're getting ready for a powerlifting competition, you're not going to go running 3 or 4 times a week, long distance. So again, it's just about being rational. So rationally, you would look at the strength and cardio work to supplement and complement your goals rather than dictate the specific outcome. So when we look at sprinting, it's up here. The act of sprinting, how do I get better at sprinting? A lot of it is to do with this part. People are putting too much of the gym work into that goal. So this should complement and supplement the work, but it shouldn't dictate, or it shouldn't be used as your main driving force to get faster. So why should we treat sprinting differently? The first thing is, and again, I'm just going to break it into steps. Obviously, sprinting is the most important, but, getting strong is always a good idea for something like this. So I wouldn't depend on a single or a specific lift. Instead, I'd focus on getting generally strong all over. As long as you can get strong and practice the skill, outcomes don't differ that much across the board. So comparing back squats to leg press or finding studies supporting the fact doesn't mean it will apply to you. So for example, you find a study that says, front squats in this sample group had a better return on investment in sprint speed as opposed to back squats in the other group. Well, a lot of those studies wouldn't be controlling for limb lengths, training age, wouldn't be controlling for your ability to perform that skill. So again, back squat is a little less technical than the front squat. So maybe some people who are front squatting proficiently, maybe their squat is a little bit better than those who are back squatting, etc. And as a result, they're getting stronger. So again, don't get caught up in the studies of what supports your sprinting. Sprinting is number one. What supports it is just getting strong, getting lean muscle tissue, having less body fat, things like that. So I would still advise training through a full or greater range of motion where possible, just for mobility gains, using more musculature through a greater range of motion, and then the quality work as well is always important. Then we'll go into some extra considerations here. So plyometrics and jumps or hops can play a big role alongside your sprinting and your strength training, where you focus on reaction, moving explosively, and utilizing your power. So when we talk about power, we need to talk about getting strong first. So power, in its most simple sense, is force times velocity. So the amount of strength you have and the amount of speed you can move at. So by putting those two together, you can train your power outcome. Again, training power without strength or without training the velocity individually is a bit like using a knitted condom. It's not that effective unless you've built towards those steps. So prioritize training the muscle fibers needed to perform. So fast twitch muscle fibers, practice plyometrics and stretch shortening cycle work. So stretch shortening cycle as in box squats, where you're slowly going down towards the box, rest on the box for a second and then explode up. So this is when a muscle is lengthened and then rapidly shortens, and the box squat is a great example of that. Moderate frequency and lower volume tends to work best for improving your plyos. Same thing for sprints, but just for the sake of this, we're talking about plyos and stuff. it tends to work better. So 2 to 3 times a week in the range of 5 to 10 jumps or plyos is plenty for most. So at the start of your session, when you're fresh and you can produce a lot of power, or if you've done a little bit of a warm-up, it can be a good idea to do them then. 3 sets of 3 box jumps with 30-second between each box jump, and between each set take a minute and a half, and make sure you're producing as much power as you can. Then the last one, of course, and the extra considerations, training considerations that is anaerobic training outside of specific training, as in specific sprinting, can help you aid your main goal. For example, 3 sets of 6 max effort sprints in the assault bike with a 3 to 4 minute rest after each one. Will that get you faster at sprinting? No, but it will train those fibers and train those reactions that you're able to just go from 0 to 100 really quick, and you're getting recovery. It's an easy, low impact way of training that sort of energy system without sprinting. Of course, it will not replace that, but it will aid it, just like everything else that I've listed above. Misconstrued information, again, is another one. So this is where people get too technical. So when we're talking about sprinting, going through the basics that we've gone through already, sprint more often, number 1. That is number 1. Specifically, sprint more often. And sprint, go at 100% in these. So taking long rests, 100% sprints. That's number 1. Number 2, get stronger. Always a good idea. Just get generally stronger through all the lifts, through a greater range of motion. 3, practice your plyos, hops, jumps. 4, train your anaerobic system in other ways if you can. Again, this can be done through your plyos, hops, jumps. And then that, if you nail those, the bread and butter, which are those, because getting strong often implies that you're gaining more lean tissue. As a result, again, this is getting into the nuances of it, but having a little bit less body fat often kind of lends to the fact, but I'm not even going to touch on that in this one. We're just going to talk about sprinting with the body you're at now. So again, if you have a little bit of fat to lose, yeah, 100%, that's going to be a huge thing for you in your sprinting. But we're not talking about that now. So if you get those 4 things down, sprinting, getting stronger, which is adding more lean tissue as well, practicing your plyos and hops and training your anaerobic system, and you get those nailed down, that's enough. People are always looking for that next step. And this is where this misconstrued information does come into. So it's rational to think that adding more weight to an exercise will get you stronger or better on that exercise. When it comes to strength, which is obvious, it's basic overload. So it's basic progressive overload principle. If your 1 rep max back squat, for example, is 100 kg, 80 kg is going to feel quite heavy for you. It's 80%. But if your 1 rep max is 150 kg, 80 kg will feel quite light. It's just over 50%, 55%. Again, this is fairly rational to think that, and it makes sense. But this stems the belief that adding weight to your sprints will result in you moving faster, and we're going to unpack that now. So yes, if you add a weight to yourself and you sprint, and then you take off the weight, of course you'll move faster, but that's because you don't have that extra weight on you, just like losing fat. But does that mean it's making you faster overall? Not really, and we're going to get onto that now. So why is it counterintuitive? So in specifically sprinting, looking at the goal, which is to utilize our fast twitch muscle fibers, produce as much force as we possibly can, therefore getting as high as we can, or as far as we can. That should be the goal, to produce as much force. So as soon as you add weight to that, you can no longer produce that rapid amount of force due to the extra load. So it's just like having a lot of fat tissue on you. That adipose tissue, it cannot contract. It's not like muscle. It's not going to lend to the fact. Just like adding a weight jacket, adding weight to a sled, you're not going to be able to produce 100%. So therefore, you're never going to be able to produce that force and practice that with the extra load. So this theory is called the maximal dynamic hypothesis output, which suggests that lower limbs put out most power with body weight alone, meaning that adding weight can actually be counterintuitive. But where adding weight has been shown to help with is sprinting in the acceleration phase. So a lot of people add sleds or add weight to things where they're sprinting maybe their first 5 to 15 yards and things like that to work in their acceleration phase. Again, keeping it very, very light, but it's been shown to help there. But for that top end speed, that 100% max effort speed, it has been shown to negate from that. Now, practical application spelled with a small I, brilliant. Okay, so let's look at what actually does work. So increase sprint frequency. Without too much volume, quality is the goal here. So 2 to 3 sessions a week with 3 to 5 max effort sprints would be plenty, allowing for plenty of rest time. You want more you always opt on the side of caution with your rest. So we often use this metric of 1 minute rest per 10 meters sprinted. So if I'm going to sprint 30 meters at max effort, a minimum of three minutes rest. Another metric that's used is a 20 to 1, 10 to 1 to 20 to 1 ratio. I like to err towards 20 to 1 work to rest ratio. So if I'm working for 6 seconds, a 10 to 1 work to rest ratio is 6 minutes. Again, can be hard for people to get, but sprinting for 10 seconds, all out max, you want to be resting somewhere from 6 to 12 minutes. That is at its very peak. A lot of the time I get people to rest 3 to 4 because they just don't do it otherwise. But if you're sticking to the principles, that's what we're looking for. Stupidly long rest, that you're fully able to be rejuvenated and go again. Second of the practical application is race other people. Sprinting against someone, especially someone on your level, will take you places that training on your own never could. And for anyone who's trained with people before or trained on their own in the off season, you know that to be true. A very slight downhill sprint, or even with the wind on your back, has been shown to help you with your sprint training as a form of accommodation or facilitation. So again, we talked about accommodation and facilitation. I have a video on the theory of accommodation. I talk about facilitation in our jumping higher video, and this is just something that will help you a slight bit to help you move faster and adapt to that. So, Roundup, just rounding it all up at the end. 1. Sprint more often and race people. 2. Get generally stronger, overload. 3. Implement some fast twitch work into your program. Max sprints 6 to 8 seconds with 3 to 4 minutes rest minimum. 4. Implement jumps and plyometric work into your programs 2 to 3 days a week for 5 to 10 reps per day. That should be fine. Spread those days out as well. Improving your hops goes a long way towards your sprinting. 5. Work on your stretch shortening cycle in the gym. So again, parallel squat into explosive jump will mean that you're going from a lengthened position into a rapidly shortened position. And then 6, I repeat, sprint more often. That's the important part there. Sprint more often. The other thing I touched on was, of course, your body composition is going to play a bit of a role in that as well. So ideally, you don't want to be carrying around too much body fat if you want to improve your sprinting. Sometimes that can be the key to actually improving your sprinting, is just losing a bit more fat tissue and having a bit more lean muscle. So to round it up again, just talking about it, is just to run faster, quality is key, meaning it doesn't matter. You don't need to get 20 sprints to get faster. Yes, that will help you get better at repetitive bouts of sprinting. That's not what the goal is here. The goal is to run faster. In order to run fast, you got to rest a long time. You got to get quality running in. And that's everything. I wanted to keep it basic, keep it simple, not go into the theory too much. I have studies about this on my page. I probably do a more in-depth one where I break the parts down or go through a sample sprint session soon. Again, I do have them on my page at Complex Fitness, where you can find them. So, thanks for listening. That is everything.